So, last Friday, I was fortunate enough to be invited to a career day event at a neighboring school. And the person who was actually putting it together, I worked with for many years. And I said yes. It was last minute. And I was like, okay, it's in about an hour from now, an hour and a half. So I'll be there. It's literally a 10-minute walk from my school. And I have to say, I was inspired. I was inspired. Let's talk about it.
When they see me, they know that every day when I'm breathing, it's for us to go farther. You know, every time I speak, I want the truth to come out. You know what I'm saying? Every time I speak, I want to shiver. You know, I don't want them to be like, they know what I'm going to say because it's polite. They know what I'm going to say. And even if I get in trouble, you know what I'm saying? Ain't that what we're supposed to do? I'm not saying I'm going to rule the world or I'm going to change the world, but I guarantee that I will spark the brain that will change the world. And that's our job, is to spark somebody else watching us. We might not be the ones, but let's not be selfish, and because we're not going to change the world, let's not talk about how we should change it. I don't know how to change it, but I know if I keep talking about how dirty it is out here, somebody going to clean it up.
And now he's been promoted. His job, principal.
So, where do I start? First of all, let me make sure I have my screen here looking right. So it dawned on me on Friday as I stood in front of a 10th grade class at the lab school for finance and technology, in District 7223. First, I got to give a big shout out to the principal there, Eric Lincoln, for having me there, for Nathaniel Medina, his community coordinator, for reaching out. And I have to say something that I did not envision during my visit, that I would find myself reflecting heavily after that conversation with those 10th graders about purpose. And it's weird because as educators, at least as an educator, I'm always talking to my students about their future. What are you going to do? You know, I always try to throw at them, like, I know where you've been. I've been there. And we do this all for you. We want you to have a good life. We want you to be a productive citizen. All the jargon and all the stuff that was said to us, at least that was said to me as a kid, I found myself repeating. And what's interesting is I say all these things from the comfort of being a school principal. I would even say the arrogance of being a school principal, saying that, I've done it. I have the degrees, or even worse, I grew up in the hood, so I know what you're going through, all that, right? And that is the stance that I usually speak to my kids, over the past 2 decades. I've always spoken to my students, my kids, the same way. And it's funny because if you had asked me in the past, I would say, no, I'm different. But in all essence, I'm the same. I think for the most part, we tend to follow the same script. It's well-meaning. We want our kids, our scholars, our students to be successful. We want to leave the world a better place. And as educators, it's just ingrained in us that is why we do what we do, to motivate, to push young people to, get the work done, right? But as I stood there, about to go up and speak behind a engineer, brilliant woman, who doing amazing work, I was thinking to myself, how do I follow that up? How do I follow up a talk being given by an engineer? Because the fact of the matter, we live in a world where once you say that you are an educator, you're a teacher, anything of the sort, people kind of go, But you know the old adage, those who can't teach. It's interesting because for a while, I had to accept that's the reason I went into education. I was getting ready for law school. So I went into education for that purpose. I didn't go into for the purpose of making a difference, doing anything of that nature. I just went in because I wanted to go to law school. And it was an easy way to make money and allow myself to have the freedom, at least somewhat freedom, to prepare for law school. So technically, I guess the adage would apply to me, those who can't teach. I can't do anything else at the moment, so teaching was the easy way to make money, right? But as I stood there, knowing that in a few moments I would have to now capture the attention of a full classroom, maybe about 25 kids, young adults, and really engage them in a conversation about career day, their future, as it's linked to what I do. Someone that is not foreign to them. These are not my students, but they've had principals. They have a principal right now. They've had principals since kindergarten. So I asked myself, how do I walk into this space and really engage 10th graders? So it hit me. This is what you're going to do. You're going to make them guess what you do. Because one of the things that I had to my benefit was the fact that I was approached about presenting on career day just that morning. So I was on the list. I didn't have a name tag. The teacher who didn't know who I was. All they knew that I was one of the people who were there to present to the class, at least to their class. So when it was my turn, I said to the class, all right, guys, we're going to do this a little bit differently. Who can guess what I do for a living? And the class was like, interesting. And I told them, popcorn, just popcorn it out. And it's funny because me saying popcorn it out should have been a giveaway, but clearly that's a strategy that they probably haven't been used on them, or they probably haven't heard in a long time. That's one of those teacher strategies, popcorn. So I was like, just blurt it out. And I'm telling you what I heard. I heard, first of all, what was I wearing? I was wearing nothing too different from what I would usually wear on a day at work. I used to be a big suit guy, but I'm a suit guy. I love my suits. I love my bow ties. I love cufflinks. I love all that. But when I'm in the trenches, I'm not wearing my Class A's. I'm wearing my Class C's. I'm wearing my fatigues. And my fatigues are pretty much a school uniform. Khakis, some J's, and I had a black Nike hoodie on that day. And so I was dressed like probably anybody you see on the street. So first thing I heard was construction worker. I was like, I bet, construction worker, I like that one. Then I heard software engineer. I heard architect. I heard entrepreneur. I heard a whole bunch of different things. They were interesting. They were outside of the box because no one said lawyer, no one said doctor. I think because they had in their minds an image of what those roles were. And I fit maybe the image of somebody who's a little bit more of a free thinker, free flowing, because I was dressed pretty much how maybe they would dress if they weren't in their school uniform. And I was like, okay, great. So I went ahead and told a story. I told the story of me, being an immigrant kid, coming to America, school, a lot of things I've shared on my numerous podcasts, but I just excluded the fact that I was an educator. And you can see in their eyes, they were just looking, trying to figure out. I talked about high school, playing football. I talked about being an immigrant. I talked about growing up in South Central LA, in the hood, Bloods and Crips. Like I talked about how I almost got expelled, how I should have been expelled in 11th grade. And I talked about the grace that was given to me by my principal. And I talked about all these different things. Then I talked about getting to college, majoring in biomedical engineering, taking my first film class, falling in love with cinema. And then I talked about, going to the Marines, coming out of the Marines, go into corporate sales, decided I wanted to be a lawyer. So I was touching point on all these different things. And they were all like, some of the kids were like, oh, maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong, maybe I was right, maybe I was wrong. Then it came down to want to be a lawyer, need to stay for the LSATs, wanted a job that wouldn't be too much pressure, that I can just literally go to work, come back home, and not do anything but stay for the LSATs. So then I told them I pursued becoming a substitute teacher, but I was in Los Angeles and there weren't any positions available. So what did I do? I reached out to some friends who said, come to New York. In New York, they're hiring teachers because these badass kids out here, they can't keep any teachers. So the class started laughing. So I said, I came to New York to work as a teacher while I prepared for law school. And you see all of them looking like, so you a lawyer? Then I said, 20 years later, I'm still here. And you can see in their eyes, they were just like, what? I was like, yeah, I'm the principal of MS224, 10-minute walk from here. And I love what I do. And I told them, this is not my job. I'm not here to talk to you about jobs. I'm here to talk to you about finding your life's work. And you could hear a pin drop in that room. And I shared some more stuff. Then afterwards, I said, hey, quick questions. And the questions were rolling. There were so many questions. And one of the last questions I received was a young lady in her hijab. And I know she was West African because I made jokes about West Africa and West African parents, and she laughed. And she was nodding her head like, yep, I know all about that life. And she said to me, what happened to law school? And I said, yeah, I didn't go to law school, but I did. And she looked at me like, huh? I said, in the 2 decades of me doing this work, I have a few students who've become lawyers. So my purpose, my passion, still took me to law school. Even though maybe I didn't physically walk into a law program, maybe I didn't physically pass the bar, but I poured into somebody who did. So I shared with them that my purpose was my driving factor the whole entire time, but I just didn't know it. From the engineering to film to corporate America, the military, all these different things were me collecting. Through these jobs, I collected things that allowed me to now work my life, to work my purpose, my life's work, which is education. And after we were done, after I was done, I said, thank you. And there was a round of applause. Like they all got up and were clapping. I was like, whoa, what just happened here? And it hit me. And what hit me is the fact that I spent a lot of time talking about education and the craft of it, the work of it, the skills and the stressors and the motivations and all these different things. But I spent no time talking about purpose and how that needs to be that needs to be a driver in everything we do. I don't talk to my students about purpose. I don't. I mean, it's funny, but I do, but I don't. It's not a driver for me. The whole notion of inspired, purposeful living. Doing the things that you know in your DNA you're meant to do. And if you haven't discovered that thing, searching for it. In the past number of weeks, I've had really sad conversations with people who are struggling to find their way. And I say it's sad because it made me sad, to see someone who's struggling and they're just like beating their heads against the wall, just trying to find meaning in their lives. And these people are adults. And I can give my advice, I can give encouragement, but there's a point where I know that what I need is a time machine. I need a time machine to take me back to their youth, to that moment when the seeds of purpose was planted in their lives, or maybe start to kind of like blossom or sprout out of the rich soil of their youth. Because then I would have said, hold on to that. Keep watering that. You're a great singer. Keep singing. Don't let anything stop you from singing. You love to read. Keep reading. Explore the whole entire world around your love for literature. You're a ball player. Keep balling out. But do everything that allows you to take ball playing to the next level. So if you're a great ball player in middle school, keep doing what you got to do to get to high school, maybe get to college, maybe to the NBA, maybe not. Maybe you just acquire enough knowledge to be a phenomenal coach. Don't just be a fan. Like, these are the things that a lot of us missed out on. And some of us are very lucky. But I'll tell you right now, I didn't have a lot of people pouring into my purpose, but at least not intentionally that I saw. But there were people who were looking out for me, making sure I stayed on the path. I didn't know where the path was going to take me. I mean, I had friends of mine growing up who were gifted. It was very clear early on. Wow, you were blessed with a particular skill set, talents that need to be developed. I was one of those people. The fact that I'm sitting here right now on this mic talking to you, and I'm not stuttering through every single vowel and syllable, is a miracle. Because as a child, I struggled. I stammered tremendously, and to this day, when the emotions are heightened, it comes out. But however, I had people who kept on telling me, slow down, breathe. Think about what you want to say before you say it. Okay. Don't be embarrassed about it. Just keep talking. And even though the stammer is still in me, I'm in full control of it. Because of the adults and the people who cared enough to keep pushing me, to not let it overtake me. And here I am. I might not have the biggest podcast in the world, but however, I'm able to get on this mic and look at this camera and speak. Purpose. And the funny thing about it is, my speaking career started the day that I became a dean at a high school in the Bronx. And I realized, oh my God, I'm gonna have to talk to people all the time. When I was in sales, it was easy. I could practice in my head, have my script ready, and do what I had to do because I knew my products very, very well. My knowledge superseded my stutter or my lacking confidence in presenting. But I knew once I got past the presentation, whether it was good or bad, I could convince you based on my knowledge set about that product. Becoming an educator and becoming a dean, I had to deal with stuff on the fly all the time. And in time, the stutter kind of vanished. It's still there, but it doesn't stop me. Listen, and if I'm in my feelings and it pops up, it doesn't bother me. But again, people poured into me. I know I'm harping on this, but I'm harping on this is because purpose has to be a thing that we pour into our children. We pour that energy into them to seek their purpose, to explore, is to discover who they are. And it's funny because the school that I lead, I didn't name it. It's called the Science School for Exploration and Discovery. I just call it Exploration and Discovery because that is what I want to see happening. Our kids, our students, our scholars exploring, discovering who they are, finding their voice, finding their focus, their purpose. Because too many of us as adults, we've given up. We don't see it. We've allowed ourselves to just drudge through our jobs, J-O-B, and not our life's work. When I gave that speech to that class and I talked about my life's work, I realized that I don't think I ever truly believed it until that moment when I looked in their eyes and I knew I had them. I knew I had them. Because I looked around that classroom and every single young person in there had their eyeballs on me. They had their ears locked on my words. And I said to myself, this is an extension of my life's work. But who was the person who walked into that room wasn't just the principal of MS224, wasn't just the sneaker principal with the podcast, wasn't just a father of two children, wasn't just. It was a complete person who finally, for the first time, heard and realized, this is my purpose. This is my life's work. And I'm saying this because I also want to talk to those of you who are listening who are mostly adults. Most people who listen to my podcast are in their 30s, like I would say late 20s into their 40s and 50s. So these are usually working professionals or people who are seeking something more for their lives. If you're hearing me right now, I'm going to tell you this. Stop pursuing a job. Work the job, but stop pursuing it. Find your purpose so that you could eventually work your work. Work your work. There are so many people out there who are school leaders who thought that was what they were meant to be. And it's not. Some people out there who are doctors who thought that was what they were meant to be. And it's not. They pursued a job for security. And one day they woke up and realized that they were miserable. And they were hating every moment of being in that space. But then they feel like I have no other options because I have a pension coming and I have this and that and this and that. And they now are relegated to living a miserable life outside of their purpose. So it's just a job. I'm telling you this right now. When you're working outside of your purpose, then you have a job. When you are working on your purpose, then you are working. And it's something that is solely given to you to do because nobody else can do that thing. And I want you to hear this. I want you to internalize this. Work your work. If you're not working your work, find your work. But do not allow yourself to be relegated to that job, just over broke. I shared that with the kids. Somebody told me that years ago, and I was like, whoa, job, just over broke. Versus when you're working, it is you. My friends, if you are in your work, and you're going through a rough patch in your work because this is your purpose, stick to it. Stick to it. Because The thing about real work that you're meant to do, that is driven by your purpose, because once you realize it or you find it, it is actually easier to do than the job. It's funny. I don't think that I took a single piece of training through my master's degree in education, through my master's degree in leadership. I don't think, honestly, truly, that I learned anything that actually is impacting what I do today. I went through my programs for the purpose of getting the license because the state required I had a license. But I never had an aha moment. I was just like, whoa, that's the thing that's going to make me a better school leader or going to make me a better educator. It was just instinctual. Yes, did I learn things? Yes, I learned skill sets and practical things that sharpened my ability to do the work. But I didn't really learn the work. People always often ask this question: how do you find your purpose? How do you know something is your purpose? And I'll tell you this. The thing about purpose is that in the quiet of your thoughts, in the still of your inner silence, you know that something is meant for you to do. The only problem is this: you might find it out when you're a year old, and they put some pots and pans in front of you, and you're making rhythms, and people are looking like, oh my God, that 1-year-old is playing the drums. Oh my God, it's a miracle. Or you might be 80 years old and you pick up a paintbrush, and the whole entire time you were a gifted artist, but you never realized it, or you were guided in a different direction when you early on. The thing about it is, your purpose is there. You know what it is. You know what it is, or it knows you. And it's often the thing that just feels so natural, but however, often others will make you feel like that thing is stupid or that thing is impractical. But quietly in those corners of your mind, you're always thinking about it like, man, I wish I could do that. Oh, I know I can do that. But then you start telling yourself the reasons why you can't, or you allow other people to tell you that. Dr. Miles Monroe, one of the most brilliant theologians, talked about purpose a lot. And one of the things I remember him saying about purpose is this: purpose is that thing that no one has to tell you. You just know it. And most of the time, you already know it. And if you don't and you discover it, you usually realize like, whoa, how come I didn't do this sooner? So I'll tell you this. In my case, education. So my freshman year in college, there was an internship in education. And I applied for it. It was teaching third graders in a inner city school in Rochester, New York. And the reason I did it is because somebody told me it looked good on your resume. So I walked into a classroom. I was a freshman in college. I was 16. And I don't know why, it scared the mess out of me. Actually, no, I do know why. Because I stuttered. I was so nervous of looking like a fool in front of third graders. But even though, as I stood in the classroom, it just felt normal. It felt natural to be in that classroom. I can see everything happening. I can see the behaviors. I can see the teacher moves and all that. But I did not want to speak in front of that classroom. I was so terrified. I think I went like 3 times and I never went back. Like I didn't call anybody, I just never showed back up again. And this was 1993, 94. So I want to say it was like in the fall. No, it was in the spring because it was after football season. It was in the spring. 3 days I never went back. Now, 1994, isn't that funny? What year is it now? It's 2024. So 30 years ago, I walked into my purpose. It was the classroom. It was those kids. But I was terrified. And honestly, I did it for the purpose of just making my resume look good. But at the time, I was hyper focused on my major in biomedical engineering, pre-med, and all the other stuff. People were saying like, you want to do community service and all the other stuff. But what was interesting as well, what made it easier for me to walk back out and not come back, to walk out and not come back, is the fact that I was told by many people that only poor people become teachers, or better yet, teachers are poor people. And I knew that's not something I wanted. So I walked out. But the military, corporate sales, wanted to go to law school. I spent some time in Hollywood doing PR work. And I came back to the classroom. And now I've been there for 20 years. And I like to say, it's been marvelous work. So find that thing. Seek that thing within yourself that you know. It might be ridiculous. And you might be wrong. But you got to keep looking for it. Because one of the things is, no matter how bad my day is, I never walk away unsatisfied. Like I feel like I'm doing the wrong thing. I might find myself in situations where I'm just like, this is not healthy because of the space I'm in trying to do my work. And that's why I walked away from the profession twice. But I didn't walk away from the profession. I walked away from situations twice. Because the first time I walked away from New York City schools, I went to Nevada, and I was an assistant principal there. Second time I walked away from New York City schools, I went to go work for a tech company, focused on education. Then I came back. Because I know it's what I am, and I'm an educator. It's just finding the place where I can do my work unhindered. And I believe I found that place now. And again, is purpose driven. Because I know that this is what I'm meant to be and what I'm meant to do. And I know that I am having impact on students, on my colleagues, on families, on the community. And I'm not saying this from an arrogant standpoint. I'm just saying it because that's what I want to do. I want to have an impact. I want to make a difference. I want my kids to say, hey, Daddy, touched so many lives. And we're inspired by what our father has done. And for me, I do it through education. So I don't know who this is meant for, but I'm looking at the chat the comments right now. Jeffrey DeGraft, thank you so much for your comments. It says here, love your persistence, brother. Your video about taking care of yourself and health pushed me to go to the doctor to check and take care of myself. Bro, thank you so much for that. Thank you for doing that, taking care of yourself. And you said, how do you find your purpose? Hopefully I was able to shed light on that, at least from my opinion. I think when God gives you purpose, at a set time, you're meant to see it. The question is what you do with it. You might do something with it, you might do nothing with it, but it really comes down to you being open and listening and paying attention. When you're in that situation where you're just sitting there and you're like, this doesn't feel right. Listen to that. Listen to it. And then when you have that thing that's bothering you and you're just like, oh, I really want to do this. I don't know why this keeps popping up. Listen to that as well. Because, purpose is never wrong. I really believe it's something that is put on us by God higher power, whatever you believe in, but in my case, by God, that makes us unique and should be our driver to do the work, which is, in my opinion, his work. But yeah, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. I hope this was helpful to you, and I look forward to talking to you again. Uche and Joku, Sneaker Principle Podcast, and until next time, be well.